Hi everyone, let's talk about High Rise, which is on Kickstarter right now. If you want to check out the campaign page and see all of the final stuff, all of this is prototype stuff, the box and everything, the size of the box. You can go and see what the final stuff will look like on the campaign page in the description or in one of the corners. So yeah, if you're wondering where the game explanation and stuff is, by the way, I did a full playthrough for it. You can go and watch that. It's linked in the description as well. So, High Rise, absolutely love it. It's using a lot of things that I really love anyway. I love time tracks. I haven't experienced that many of them. Kraftwagen and Glenmore are the ones that mainly spring to mind. I'm sure there's a couple more in there somewhere. It's such a fantastic system where the person in last place always goes next. So you have to gauge how far you want to go. You can jump to the space you want exactly if you want to, but you are giving the other players kind of free moves or freedom to make choices when they finally do skip ahead of you that can really, really hold you back. So taking the thing that you want, you have to always risk losing the thing that you want the most because, yeah, you don't know how the other players are going to react to it. You can't jump ahead too many times. There is a bit of a restriction in this where that's a really nice one, actually, where you can only go to one space in each section. I think there might be a special power that breaks that rule occasionally. But yeah, it's not like in, say, Kraftwagen where you can just, if the other player skips ahead, you just get a ton of free turns. You do have that restriction, so you have to think about the space that you want to go to the most in each of those areas. It's a nice resource gathering game, and then you are building stuff with those resources. But there's so much on top of just gathering the right combination of things to build these skyscrapers. Because it's one nice thing that you are building this visual representation of these skyscrapers all over the board. It's going to be, I mentioned in the playthrough that currently the thinking is that it's going to be represented by 3D standees for the buildings. So you'll gather the right resources for them, and then instead of just stacking the resources up and finding a number for them, you will find the 5-size standee and put that there instead. So you've got this nice visual representation, and this visual representation of the skyscrapers you're building, that is growing over time, because a nice element of it is that it isn't detrimental to the person having their building demolished at all, but the smallest building will get demolished and these skyscrapers will grow and grow and grow over time. That's a really nice thing, a nice evolution as the game goes on as well. But speaking in terms of just, gathering resources, building something with them, a million games do that. But you have got to think about not just the thing that you want to build and you are racing to be first for the premium floor bonus, you're trying to match ultra plastic floors to get more premium bonuses, but you are also trying to build in these spaces for special powers, for abilities that last throughout the game, and giving you the option to build anywhere from any of the building spaces, if you're willing to take a bit of corruption, means that even more goes into the thought of what you're doing there. Also, you are trying to build for majorities. Each neighborhood is going to score for the tallest building in it at the end of each round, and as the rounds go on, those bonuses get more and more worth it. And then there's, the city centre where the bonuses tend to be even better and you get extra points for building in there. It's just a really nice thing. On top of everything else, you are trying to plan out where these things are going to pay off the most. And yeah, you can go for the approach of just try and get as many buildings out as possible. Try and get out in front and try and just flood all of the neighborhoods with your buildings. Or you can try and be a bit more meticulous about it, a bit more playing the long game, building up the right resources and trying to build the biggest things. But if somebody does it quicker than you and takes away some of the bonuses, it's not going to be as worth it for you. So you have to, you're always wanting to race ahead and get to the building space first, but you also want to kind of take your time and gather as many resources as you can so that you can build the best things. It's a really nice push and pull between those things. Another fantastic part is the corruption. That there are so many bonus opportunities on here, so many times where you can kind of double up on your actions or take better versions of actions if you are willing to take a little bit of corruption. Sometimes the building spaces, apart from the stop space, have only got 2 spaces on there. They've got 1 fewer for the number of players, so it'll be 3 spaces on the other side. Speaking mainly, by the way, of a 2-player game. I've only played this 2-player. But yeah, so somebody's always going to be left out if it's a 3 or 4-player game, and maybe in a 2-player game because of the neutral player. More on him later. But yeah, if you don't get there first, you have to take 2 corruption. So, which doesn't seem like much of a thing at all. And early on, where it's like, okay, here's a floor, you can have another floor if you want, if you take a corruption. And to start with, you think, oh, fine, well, one corruption, that's fine, I can recover from that very, very, very quickly. If you're not careful, it ends up being, 7, 9, 10, 12. It starts increasing, the gaps between the numbers start going up and up. But that doesn't matter too much. The thing that matters the most is where you are in the pack. And in a 2-player game, there's only 2 of you on here. And so if you jump ahead in corruption to do this fantastic build where you've managed to do all of these fantastic things, and you've maybe set off a load of your powers, because you can double up on powers, you can triple up on powers, but you have to pay corruption if you want them all to go off in one go. You can do these fantastic combos with all of these variables that are available to you, but your cost is usually, okay, then take a bit more corruption. And, there is a bit of mitigation that the person with the fewest points can have some corruption taken off them at the end of each year. But having the most corruption holds you back in terms of having some of the powers. Some of the tenant cards that can come out can hold you back if you've got the most corruption. Although the one that came out this game rewarded you for having the most corruption. But yeah, and then at the end of the game, you lose that many points. So it goes up to 42 on here, and it can be a huge, huge difference if you have to make sure that this has all been worth it. And that's kind of you can't absolutely calculate that. It's all about, does this feel like it's going to pay off in the end? If I go too far ahead in corruption, not only does it put me at risk and mean I'm going to have to be losing powers and stuff, but it also frees the other player up to, maybe they were going for absolutely no corruption and have hardly had any the whole game. Well, now you're 6 spaces in front of them. They're probably more likely to get a couple of corruption, which helps you out a little bit, narrows the gap a little bit, but they feel comfortable doing it because you're so far ahead on it. It's a really, really beautiful system, and something that makes, so many decisions in the game are tied to corruption that, it really makes you have to think about what you're doing, because getting too far ahead on that can completely ruin your game, just down to not being in control of your corruption compared to the other players. The other thing that I really love is specific to the 2-player game. Now, in most 2-player variants, you need to do something to tighten the board up, to make some of these spaces off limits, to make you have to think a little bit more, as if it's a 3-player game. This side of the board is up to 3 players. And so on your turn, you alternate control of the neutral mogul. And on your turn, you can just put him in front. Just put him in front of the player that's furthest along on the time track. And that's just it. If they land on a space that's got someone else's building on it, they get a floor. That's just it. But you can instead choose to take a corruption, which again, at the beginning of the game seems fine. Take a corruption and put him anywhere you want and get to take a turn as if this was your thing. That's just that little rule change. The first rule change is that just having, okay, then when it's the dummy player's turn, just put him in front. That's fair enough. Glenn Moore solves it having a die that has a 1, 2, or 3 on it. You roll him, he moves that many spaces forward, takes that tile. That's kind of what I'd expect from a 2-player variant. That added extra, though, of thinking about, do I want to take an extra turn? And it adds to that really tough, often really hard decision of, do I want to make more corruption? I said at the beginning of the game, you're just like, yeah, I'll have another turn, 1 corruption, fine. Yeah, I'll take an extra tile, just another corruption. But yeah, as I said, soon it ramps up and you have to really worry about it, depending on how much the other player is doing it as well. You have to make sure that the corruption you're taking is really, really working for you. But the temptation and the desire to have double your turns. You can never have double your turns. You couldn't take a corruption every time, I don't think, and have any chance of winning the game. Maybe you could. Try it. But having that, all of these things that are going on, all these things that are running through your head, and where you're going to go next, and where it's going to ruin your plans if this player goes in that space instead. All of that is running around in your head. But then you are thinking about, okay, this time that the dummy player comes up, okay, the other player's in charge of it then, so I don't really get to decide, but I have to worry about, oh no, there's only 2 spaces in the building things. If I don't rush there now, they're going to make it skip ahead and block off the space for me. You have to think about that. But when you're in control of the neutral player, you are filled with temptation that, okay, if I just have 1 more corruption, then I can have a whole extra turn and make all of these combos go off, maybe build extra things, block off spaces for the other player, get you some really big bonuses if you time it properly. And that's what this is all about, really. Timing your corruption, timing when you take an extra turn, timing when you build these things to kind of, you know, maybe you want people to go ahead of you in building so that you can then swoop in a little bit later, not too late because there won't be a space available for you, but swoop in a little bit later so that you can be sure that you've built up some more floors or some more powers or some spires and things so that, okay, they've put their cards on the table, they've got their buildings, I can make sure that I've got a higher building so I can reap all of the rewards from that. I'll say that it's a long game. It's gone, and we're not that experienced with it, so, you know, it's take it with a pinch of salt that I imagine once you're comfortable with it, there's still so much to crunch in this in a 2-player game with the dummy players, the extra thought of what do I do with this dummy player. It's not massively long. I'd say that, yeah, that it's we got it down. It was about probably 2.5 hours, the first game, but yeah, we got it down quite a bit in the second one. And hopefully the playthrough hasn't been that long for you. And also, it's a game where the kind of your ability at the game is the score, really. There are things that will get in your way. You could maybe draw completely the wrong tiles all game, or I think eventually it will work out for you with the trading spaces and all of that. I don't think that's ever going to be a big enough factor. There's a bit of luck in that part of it, and, you know, just the nature of people on a board not necessarily doing it on purpose to mess you up will eventually throw a spanner in the works. You're not going to be able to get exactly what you want all of the time. But in general, I would say that if someone is significantly better than the other players, I think that they will win. And, you know, that might not be an issue. That might sound really perfect for you. Love games with that lower luck factor. But yeah, it could be for someone really experienced and someone new to it. There's going to be a big points difference, I think, from my limited experience with it. But yeah, I'm kind of grasping at straws there, aren't I? Those criticisms aren't really much of anything. But the playthrough is there for you to find your own criticisms in it. Again, remember, you can't criticise the art or this box is too big. It's all a prototype. You can't say anything about that yet. That'll happen when the final thing happens. But in terms of gameplay and stuff, I hope you'll see the playthrough. Hopefully you'll be impressed too. But that's all down to you, really, isn't it? This has been my piece. Hopefully, haven't been too sycophantic about it. But yeah, really, really enjoyed High Rise, and can't wait to see what all of the final version looks like, scaled down a little bit. Anyway, go and watch the playthrough. Watch more things that I've done. I've done hundreds of them. Hopefully you'll enjoy those just as much. And yeah, that's it from me. I'll see you for the next game. Bye.